Welcome to the show. You're watching UAP Troop 33. I'm John. I'm your host. Today, I want to talk about this, and I just caught this. It's been out for a while. It has to do with the Age of Disclosure uh, movie release. And I guess they're trying to find distributors or people that want to stream it online. I think that's how it's going to go. But what I found disturbing was, and here we go with this. It adds fuel to the theory of fake alien invasion. And I caught this article where Marco Rubio is on there talking about this could be, if we don't pay attention to UAPs, this could become an intelligence failure on the level of like a Pearl Harbor or September 11th, 2001. And I find that as kind of over the top because the evidence just doesn't support that. But we're going to take a look at this article and we're going to talk about this because I find it very disturbing that this is what our lawmakers, I believe he's Secretary of Defense, right? Secretary of State, one of those. But for him to say that, it's kind of like they use fear to control the public. They use fear to control the masses, right? This is just a tactic that the people in power do. And I really, Marco Rubio was one of the politicians that I kind of, I liked him because he was all for UAP disclosure. I mean, he's never going to be a Burchett or a Luna, but I thought that he was up there with those people when it came to UAPs and disclosure. But to say that we need to fear them and that this could become like an intelligence failure on the level of you know September 11th, that's just, I don't know. What do you guys think? We're going to take a look at this article and we're going to break this down because I don't see how this helps, how this is conducive for positive interaction with these beings if they are here. You know, I mean, we've actually taken military actions against them, and they didn't respond in kind. And there's cases and cases and cases about it, where pilots tried to lock on, try to take them out, and they instead of shooting them down, the they broke the lock. Then the UAP surrounded the plane and escorted the plane out of the exercise area. So that's what the case was. And I just that to me is they're trying to remain peaceful here. You know, yeah, they're shutting down Air Force bases. They're hovering over our nuclear sites. Well, what's the message in that? What are they telling us, huh? When they're going up above nuclear silos and weapons bases, what are they telling us right there? Maybe they're telling us to stop playing with this. Maybe they're trying to give us a warning about using these types of weapons. And I just find it, it just backs up the claims that people like Stephen Greer, who over and over and over again, I would be suspicious of some of Stephen Greer's claims. I would think that they're too over the top, and over and over and over again, I'm proven wrong. And then you have Jeremy Corbell, and it's 2027, and there's an approaching object that's under intelligent control that's coming towards us, and it's supposedly going to get here between 2026 and 2027. Red Panda Koala did a hell of a episode about that, and I got my Red Panda Koala right here. My man got his channel back after they tried to take him out because he criticized Lou, which I think is just outrageous. So good for him for getting his channel back. But without further ado, let's take a look at this article. So here we go, right? Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his chilling, eye-opening warning on UAPs that hits closer to home than science fiction stories of little green men. There's a scene in a documentary that I find especially impactful where Marco Rubio talks about how a lack of imagination has historically led to all of the greatest intelligence failures and disasters from Pearl Harbor to 9/11, and that he doesn't want that to happen again, Farrer told THR. He says in the film, we've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours. and we don't know whose it is. That alone deserves inquiry, deserves attention, and deserves focus. Unquote. Farrer equates that warning to the biggest attack on American history. Prior to 9/11, we didn't put enough money toward counterterrorism, and our intelligence agencies didn't share enough information. Unquote. He continued, quote, everyone looked back and said, we could have done this better. My interview subjects point out that we're now in a situation where that stigma around UAPs is creating hurdles for us to appropriately address this issue with a whole government approach. There's not the appropriate amount of funding going toward it, and there's not the appropriate amount of oversight. Farrer interviewed 34 current and former senior members of the U.S. government, military, and intelligence community on the record in his documentary, making it unique in that it puts names and recognizable faces like Rubio's in it. And I'm all for that. I'm glad that movie was made, but this, you know, warning, is just kind of over the top for me. These beings have always been interacting with us with great restraint in the face of our aggression towards them. And I just find it like, come on, man. Really, this is what we're doing? I I guess this is fair. Quote, I hope I made a film that makes the public aware of a very serious situation that impacts us all. I had multiple senators tell me that they thought my documentary would be one of the most effective tools for helping make the public aware of the truth in a way that could get the rest of the government to take this topic more seriously. Unquote. Now, maybe they're just doing this right. Maybe Marco Rubio is just saying these things to kind of sound the alarm, not so much because he believes it to be true, but because maybe he thinks that this may be a good tactic for disclosure, for them to disclose the situation, right? To get them to pay attention to it, not stigmatize it, take it seriously, right? By using fear. Now, I really don't like that tactic, but if that's what he's doing and that's his end game, okay. But you don't want to create fear where there should, like where there shouldn't be any. And I think a lot of these people do that. There's great evidence that these abductions are my lab, they're military abductions, that there's some kind of, I'm not sure, I'm not going to go into deep on my lab, or abductions because I don't really know enough about it because it's enigmatic subject, it's hard to get your mind around. Some of the accounts are just crazy, but the crazy thing is that you have all these people from all these different walks of life, from all these different parts of the globe, they're telling the same story. And some of them are that there's people, human beings in military garb on freaking spaceships, you know, when these crazy experiments are being done on. People actually have had implants removed after these experiences. So it's a physical phenomenon. Something's going on here, but what is it? Is it my labs, like Stephen Greer says, or is it alien abduction? Are they able to, I don't know, make themselves appear like, you know, who knows? But you don't want to kind of like make people terrified of this subject. I just don't think it's the way to go about it. But we're going to continue with this article. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Mike Rounds co-sponsored the UAP Disclosure Act, which was also endorsed by Rubio and Senator Gillibrand. The act had very specific language to try to use the law to bring about disclosure. Schumer literally included a quote saying, the American public has a right to learn about technologies of unknown origins, non-human intelligence, and unexplainable phenomena. This is very specific language when you read that. Any average person would say to themselves, oh my God, is this real? Yes, it's real. Something else that I found really eye opening is how truly bipartisan this topic is at a time when Democrats and Republicans don't agree on anything. So that's one positive aspect. The leadership of both parties are completely aligned on how serious this is. None of the government leadership I spoke to who have access to very sensitive declassified information were debating whether this is real. None of them. I just It's crazy, man. You know, just to think that we have this super advanced technology, not some human being somewhere have this technology and it's being repressed for economic reasons, being repressed because they don't want third world countries to level the playing field with us and the other superpowers. I don't know, man. What do you guys think of this? Here's Stephen Greer to Newsmax and cover up of UFOs. Stephen Greer, ufologist and founder of Disclosure Project, told Newsmax on Thursday that it is time for more transparency on what the government knows about UFOs. Greer appeared the day after House Republicans held a hearing on unidentified aerial phenomenon, formerly called UFOs. The House Oversight Committee held the hearing in an effort to further pull back the curtain on secret UAP research programs conducted by the U.S. government and undisclosed findings they have yielded. The hearing will, in part, follow up on information provided by whistleblower David Grush, who asserted in July 2023 that the Pentagon has been operating a secret crash retrieval program for UAPs, something the Defense Department has denied. Of course they did. Last year's initial hearing documented at least 400 sightings, many of them by U.S. military pilots, and 11 near collisions. However, Pentagon released a report in March saying there is no evidence of any government investigations that has confirmed that any sightings of a UAP represent extraterrestrial technology. They keep coming back to this extraterrestrial technology, and they keep saying extraterrestrials. They're very, very clever in their wording, and that's the thing you have to pay attention to when you're dealing with these people. They're very slick in how they word things, how they phrase things, so that later on down the line they can say, "Oh, I wasn't lying. I didn't lie at all. Look, this is what I said." You know, and it might just be another a different aspect. You know, maybe these things have been here for so long, they may, for all we know, these things may have been here before us. You know, we're told Newsline that he believes the government has been running illegal UFO research dating back to the 50s with no oversight from the legislative or executive branch. And there's mountains of proof of this. MJ12, the Byrne document, all these things. You know, and I can bring them up. I can show them to you here, and I've shown them to you in previous episodes. There's so much evidence that it's crazy that this is still stigmatized the way it is. I have provided briefing documents to every president since Bill Clinton, and I can attest to that because I've seen his letter to Bill Clinton when I was when I was scanning through the National Archives looking at all their release. You know, they had a big release of photos and documents, and Stephen Greer's letter to Bill Clinton was in there. They referred it to NASA, and NASA actually responded to him. Of course, NASA, you know, they didn't tell him anything. We're preparing one for the incoming president, Greer said. This is a huge constitutional crisis that nobody's really talking about. Matthew Brown, he said the same exact thing. This is a constitutional crisis. That our freedoms, things are being repressed. Scientific advancements have been repressed. Things that could change the world, that could get us off fossil fuels, all that. And a lot of people think this is hogwash, but it's going to come out. Eventually, it's going to come out. Greer said he has 760 whistleblowers who have come forward to him about the secret projects being run. Just think about that. 760 people. It's just crazy, man. Crazy, dude. So that's that. Let me know what you think. Hit the comments up. What do you guys think about this? Wild story, man. So I don't even know what to say, man. You know, you read an article like that, you read, you know, and it's just like right there. Like, you know, people are saying they want disclosure and stuff. Like, I don't know what else people want. You know, I mean, I get it. I get it. We need to start crafting. I don't want to say legislation because I really don't think the government needs to be involved in this because they damn sure ain't helping out with disclosure. I mean, you got some of these representatives in Congress, yes. But I'm talking about these unelected officials. And like if you remember, whenever the Immaculate Constellation document got entered into Congress, when Nancy Mace they handed it to her, if you go back and watch that footage, and I posted it, I think in the last episode, last couple episodes, I posted that scene. You could see their advisors, and they're the ones who kind of set the agenda for representatives. These are the unelected officials, and it turns out that I suspect that they're intelligence operatives, that these unelected advisors, and I think they surround all the politicians. I think they're embedded in our media. I think they're embedded in our local government. I think they're embedded in just about every aspect of our society. And the reason why that's a constitutional crisis in and of itself, because it's against the law. It's against the Constitution of the United States for them to operate domestic. These intelligence agencies are for foreign affairs. They're supposed to be protecting us and keeping secrets from our enemies. They're not supposed to be doing these operations against their own freaking citizens, man. And that's what's happened, and it's evident, And you can't make this shit up. And I guarantee they're embedded in the tech companies. They always go and they look, man. They've gotten Gary Nolan said that he's spoken to them, interacted with them, how put off, these people in these universities that are doing these things, like SRI and Stanford, where they were doing a remote viewing and all that. And they were really researching, consciousness and how, and the CIA wanted to know how they could use that, as a weapon against their enemy and possibly as a weapon against their own population, which is illegal. So that's pretty much. And I know some of you might be saying, "Man, where's the evidence of this?" Listen, it's there, man. The evidence is there. Operation Mockingbird. I can bring up documentation about that where it'll show you that there was a bona fide operation to infiltrate the media on a global scale, Radio Europe and all that. Listen, they did it, and they've done it to the domestic media also. If you think I didn't, you're living in a fairyland, and especially with the advancements of surveillance technology, where they're able to actually, you know, surveil us at any time, at any place, and they don't need like a big group of people to sift through the data, right? They got this AI. The one that NRO has is called Sentient, and it takes all the information from all these satellites that are looking at the planet, and it just takes all that information and stores it, right? So then whenever these agencies or whatever want to get some type of information, they can just type in like a query and the AI is going to kick the answer out. So if they're looking for a black truck with a guy that's wearing a red shirt, in the Western Pennsylvania area, they're going to bring up every black truck with a guy with a red shirt because these satellites can see that. You know, this is the world we live. And you look at China with their social credit score, everybody's on camera 24 hours a day. And even like that, like the plate readers and when you ride past these checkpoints at the turnpike or whatever, and you ever see in the morning when you're watching the news broadcast and they're showing you the traffic at the parkway or the whatever beltway, whatever wherever you live, and they're showing you the traffic in real time because it's a camera, you know. You don't think that law enforcement, intelligence and the feds, they don't have access to that info? You don't think there's a AI that's able to pull out the data so that all these people have to do is just type in the query, man. If they got your plate number or whatever, they just type it in, bam. Oh, okay, he's going down 376 West or whatever, right? This is where it's worse than 1984. And the thing is, people are so asleep, and everybody's worried about Diddy. Everybody's worried about all these dumbass distractions. You watch CNN, it shouldn't even be called CNN anymore. It should be Trump channel because all they do is talk about Trump. I mean, it's just constant distractions, constant um, things to divert our attention from the real issues, which is there's a freaking presence on this planet, non-human intelligence that's way more advanced than us, that have the ability to manipulate gravity, time, space, and not only that, but now with the with AI, and we only get, they have way more advanced AI than we know. The public only sees what they want us to see. You know, they have supercomputers under the ground, that's just churning through data, and we're at the mercy, man. We're living in a surveillance state, and in some cases, a police state. I don't know how many videos I watch where cops just walk up on somebody like, "Let me see your ID," and if they don't give them the ID, they're going to jail. And if you refuse, they're gonna take you to the ground. They're gonna slam you. They're gonna rough you up, all because you didn't show them your paper. Isn't that what they did in Germany? They used to go to people, "Hey, let me see your paper." If you didn't show them your papers, bad day for you. This is what's going on. So that's the show for today. Please hit the like and subscribe, share it with a friend, share it with two friends, because I think this episode is probably one of the most important episodes I've made. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't it doesn't take it down, man. But we'll see. So till tomorrow, this is UAP Truth 33. I'm John. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. And I'll see you tomorrow.